Imagine, if you will, a smoky studio. It's late in the evening. One of the most celebrated bands of the rock era are Restless. They're searching for a sound, an edge that will take them into the next phase of their career. Then all of a sudden, they hear a ruckus outside the window. It was this mysterious figure of a guy jumping in and out of view. Was it a criminal? Was it a peeping Tom? Not even close. It was the gardener. A strange dude who not only inspired this band's new sound, but one of the great rock songs ever. From that kooky gardener, the song came to life. A track so raw and charged with mystery, it felt like it was conjured from another realm. But who was this shadowy figure? And how did he reignite a rock and roll ritual that would leave an indelible mark? In today's episode, we reveal the untold origins of a masterpiece. But who really wrote the music? The famous singer and guitarist? They're credited, but a few others from the band, they have a different story. Also, what happened to the gardener after that? Did he get any royalties? Find out next. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you know the beautiful relationship between a pencil and a cassette tape, you're going to dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now. Click the red button and click the bell so you always know when our latest and greatest come out. Check out our t-shirt of the day below. And also check us out on Patreon. It's time for another edition of Number One in Our Hearts. Songs that absolutely should have been number one on the pop charts, but they came up a little bit short. This one's a no-brainer. And I got to start out with the classic debate. Everybody knows it. Who's the greatest? The Beatles or the Stones? I mean, it might feel like a worn-out question for many. Let's play along, though. My honest opinion, I'm going to give the edge to the Beatles, as much as I love them, though. I got to hand it to the Stones. I mean, their staying power is unmatched. 6 decades later, now into their 80s, Mick and Keith are still out there rocking harder than ever, putting out incredible shows. Keith will live forever, we all know this. So check this out. After over 60 years of live performances, there's one song that the Stones have played more than any other. It's a track that actually marked a turning point in their legendary career. And it was pure dynamite when it hit in 1968. It's just as explosive today. Talking about the Stones classic, Jumpin Jack Flash. And there's a crazy story about where it came from. The release of Jumpin Jack Flash, it marked a bold new direction for the Stones. A leap into pure guitar-driven rock. In their early days, the band leaned heavily on the blues, with founding member Brian Jones at the heart of their sound. But then as the 60s wore on, the Stones experimented. They even ventured into psychedelia with their Satanic Majesty's Request. By 1968, though, things were changing drastically. Jones was drifting out of the picture, and the band started to shed his influence altogether. It made room for a grittier, harder edge that was led by Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. And then in 1969, the shift became final. The Stones parted ways with Jones, and within a month, he was gone. Sadly, found dead in a swimming pool. After this tragedy, the Stones, they entered a new path altogether. Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, now firmly at the helm, the Stones soared to new heights, turning out stadium anthems like Brown Sugar and It's Only Rock and Roll, and solidifying their place as rock legends. So a quick recap. Back in '62, Brian Jones, fan of the Rolling Stones, shaping them as a British blues band and even giving them their name. But then as the years passed by, the dynamics began to shift. Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, who had become a powerhouse songwriting duo, they started taking over the band's musical direction, moved them beyond Jones's original vision. Jones began to seriously struggle with alcohol and drug issues, and his reliability in the studio started to wane. Because of this, his role within the band he had built began to fade. By June of '69, the Stones made the tough decision to part ways with him. They replaced him with guitarist Mick Taylor. Tragically, less than a month after that, Jones was found dead in his swimming pool at Cotchford Farms, East Sussex, joining the infamous 27 Club. Brian's passing left a deep mark on the music world, inspiring tributes and songs and poetry from artists like Pete Townsend and Jim Morrison. In 1989, Brian Jones was posthumously honored when he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with the Stones, a lasting tribute to the legacy that he left behind. Now, the Stones, for their part, really became the guitar-driven band we know today after Brian left. This is what Danny Garcia, the director of Rolling Stone, Life and Death of Brian Jones, said. He said, through the 60s, they went from an R&B group to a pop band. And then they tried out psychedelia until they finally landed on their new signature sound with Jumpin Jack Flash in 1968. I was raised by toothless fitted head. So who is Jumpin Jack Flash? Well, his real name's Jack Dyer. He just so happened to be Keith Richards' gardener. Keith shared that he and Mick penned the lyrics to this rock classic while staying at his country house in Redlands. The dynamic duo had been up nearly all night, and they barely closed their eyes when they were suddenly jolted awake by the sound of boots trudging past the window, a guy jumping in and out of view. They're like, what the hell? Is it a criminal, somebody trying to break in? It was the gardener, Jack Dyer. He had some landscaping tools in tow, ready to work. Now, curious about the ruckus, Mick shouted out, "What the hell was that?" Keith replied, "Oh, that's Jack. That's Jumpin' Jack." Now, from that crazy moment, the lyrics started to take shape. I was born in a crossfire hurricane, and I howled at my mom in the driving rain. But it's all right now. In fact, it's a gas. But it's all right. I'm Jumpin Jack Flash. It's a gas, gas, gas. I'm Jumpin Jack Flash. It's a gas, gas, gas. Now, in Victor Bockers's Keith Richards, the biography, it's noted that the line, "I was born in a crossfire hurricane," one of the coolest lyrics in the song, that was penned by Keith himself. This line actually reflects his experience of being born in Dartford, England in '43, surrounded by the chaos of bombing and air raid sirens during World War II. In a 1995 interview with Rolling Stone, Jagger reflected on the origins of Jumpin Jack Flash, saying, "It emerged out of all the acid of their satanic majesty's request." He described it as a song about facing tough times and finding a way out. Really a metaphor for escaping the heaviness of that psychedelic era. The main riff of Jumpin Jack Flash, that's reminiscent of their earlier staple, "I Can't Get No Satisfaction." But there's much more to it than that. There's a mythical essence to the song's unique melodic structure. I mean, when it comes to the song's distinctive sound, guitarist Keith Richards shared the secret behind it. He said, and I quote, "I used a Gibson Hummingbird acoustic tuned to an open D, a 6-string, open D or open E, which are essentially the same, but I slacked it down for D. I added a capo to create that tight, crisp sound." He also layered in another guitar, and this one was tuned to what's known as the Nashville tuning. He'd admit, and I quote, "I picked that up from someone in George Jones's band back in San Antonio back in 1964. Now, to capture the raw essence of their sound, both acoustics were run through a Philips cassette recorder. He said, "Just jam the mic right into the guitar and play it back through an extension speaker." This simple yet effective setup was key in crafting that timeless vibe of Jumpin Jack Flash. While Keith is credited with creating the song's iconic riff, the story behind the credits, that's not so straightforward. Assigning songwriting credits is frequently a source of controversy, and Jumpin Jack Flash is definitely not an exception. There's always different sides of the story. Actually, in his autobiography, Stone Alone, Bill Wyman claims that he actually came up with the distinctive main guitar riff, collaborating with Brian Jones and Charlie Watts before it ultimately ended up credited to Jagger and Richards. In his book, Rollin' with the Stones, another one, Wyman breaks down his contributions. He gives Jagger credit for the vocals, Richards for guitar and bass, Jones for additional guitar, Watts for drums. and himself for the organ, with producer Jimmy Miller adding backing vocals. But let's not forget the recruitment of Ian Stewart on piano and Rory Dijon playing the maracas. Bill might have had a hand in writing Jumpin' Jack Flash, but he was never thrilled that the song was credited solely to Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. He recounted a particular day in the making of the track saying, "We got to the studio early. I think it was more of a rehearsal studio than a recording one. It was just me, Brian, and Charlie there." Bill pointed out that the Stones never arrived at the studio at the same time. Actually, in Bill's account, Mick and Keith weren't there yet, so we just started messing around on the piano, playing this riff. Brian joined in with a bit of guitar, and Charlie was laying down a rhythm. Bill said they were just filling time for about 20 minutes. And then Mick and Keith finally showed up, and the early birds, Charlie, Brian, and Bill, stopped playing. Now, according to Bill, Keith said, "Hey, man, what was that? That sounded great. What is it?" Bill concluded that the next day the entire band went into the studio and recorded the song. Despite receiving official credit for writing the music and not giving credit to the other guys, Keith felt like there was a cosmic force at play behind it all, though. In his 2010 autobiography, Life, Keith Richards reflected on the enigmatic power of Jumpin' Jack Flash. He said, and I quote, "I love Satisfaction dearly, but let's be real, those chords are pretty standard. But Flash, that was something special. It's almost like it has an Arabic vibe, or feels like it's very ancient, almost classical. The chord progressions remind me of something you'd hear in Gregorian chants or similar to that." Keith called it a fascinating blend of rock and roll with echoes of music that feels incredibly old, something you just can't quite place. "It's older than I am," which is just mind-blowing. That's what Keith would say. Keith reinforced the magical mystery of Jumpin' Jack Flash, stating, "It's like tapping into a memory of something, you can't quite figure out what that memory is or where it came from. Deja vu." As Keith expressed in Rolling Stone, he feels an immense pride in his guitar work for this song. Keith Richards would go on to say, and I quote, "When you get a riff like Flash, it brings about a wave of elation, a wicked glee. Every time I play Flash, I can feel the whole band lift off behind me. It's like there's this extra turbo boost. You jump onto the riff and suddenly it's playing you. It's almost like levitation." It's probably the best way to describe the feeling. That says a lot for a song that Keith and the Stones have played in front of a live audience over 1,200 times. Now, while there's speculation of who wrote the music for sure, there's never been any question about the fact that Mick Jagger, he wrote the infectious lyrics for Jumpin' Jack Flash. He wrote it as a playful twist on a classic blues line, "Nobody knows the troubles I've seen." You say, what really stands out is the over-the-top imagery. But what makes Jumpin' Jack Flash truly, truly original is the overall message, especially in the chorus. But it's all right now. In fact, it's a gas. And that's the part of the song that I admire the most. You know, the clever phrasing of "it's a gas." Now, the history behind the use of gas as a source of enjoyment or denoting something exciting, that goes back to the 1800s. I actually looked this up. The term gas exclaiming enjoyment first appeared in print in 1839. Actually, Charles Dickens used the phrase, "everything is gas and gators." Later, at the turn of the 20th century, the more direct origin of the usage in the 20th century is from Irish slang, where gas meant to joke, something frivolous and lighthearted, found in print by James Joyce in 1914. The phrase "it's a gas," that made its first appearance in print in 1957 in the works by James Baldwin. It was quickly embraced by the hippie movement during the so-called jazz age of the 60s, and you can still hear that expression from the era pop up every now and again. At the time the Stones recorded Jumpin' Jack Flash, they didn't even have a single on the Billboard Hot 100, which was very rare for them. However, that would change when the world became aware of that incredibly crafted rock classic Jumpin' Jack Flash. It was dropped in the UK on May 24, 1968 by Decca Records. Came out in the US on May 31st by London Records, backed by Child of the Moon. Oh, Child of the Moon. This marked the band's first UK release in 5.5 months. Actually, the longest gap between releases for them in their home country up to that point. Described by Rolling Stone magazine as supernatural Delta blues by way of swing in London. I love that. Jumpin' Jack Flash became an international sensation. It was a non-album single, and it surged to #1 in the UK, New Zealand, Germany, Netherlands, and Australia. It missed out here, it went to #3. That's why I said it should have been a #1 hit. Jumpin' Jack Flash has been a cultural phenomenon. It's found its way into films. It's been covered by a wide range of artists like Thelma Houston, Tina Turner, Peter Frampton, Johnny Winter, Leon Russell, Alex Chilton, to name a few. And of course, the song plays a prominent role in the 1973 film Mean Streets, when Robert De Niro's character makes his entrance. Director Martin Scorsese, he used the track straight from his own vinyl copy. He wanted to capture its raw, gritty edge. And then, of course, Michael Keaton made great use of it in his screen debut with the Fonz in The Night Shift. I love this scene. Jumpin' Jack Flash. Don McLean referenced Jumpin' Jack Flash in American Pie with the line, "Jack be nimble, Jack be quick. Jack Flash sat on a candlestick, because fire is the devil's only friend." Actually, rumor has it that the devil in the song was a nod to Mick Jagger. Fire is the devil's only friend. And then in '86, Jumpin' Jack Flash lent its title to a Whoopi Goldberg film with the Rolling Stones original version playing in the end credits. On the replay. 2004, Chevy used Jumpin' Jack Flash in a Corvette ad. It didn't last long on air, though. The commercial showed a young kid driving the Corvette recklessly, which was supposed to represent him dreaming about this car. But viewers didn't quite take it that way. The complaints rolled in, and it led Chevy to pull the ad pretty quickly. Truly, it's heartwarming how life can pivot around key moments that shape our unique journeys. I mean, those moments have inspired some of the greatest songs ever written. And that's exactly what happened with Jumpin' Jack Flash. This song would never have come to be if it weren't for gardener Jumpin' Jack Dyer stomping around in the early morning, outside of Keith's country house, jumping in and out of view. He's just simply going about his work attending to the lawn. In that moment, if it had unfolded any other way, the Stones would never have gifted the world Jumpin' Jack Flash. I mean, for this, we owe a big thanks to Jack Dyer and his incredible work ethic. So what happened to Jumpin' Jack Dyer and the gardener, after that magical moment? It's not widely known, but there's an intriguing detail about him as an unsuspecting muse behind the song. So in 1966, Keith Richards was honored with his first Bravo Auto Award, a prestigious German accolade recognizing outstanding performers in film, television, and music, as voted of the readers of Bravo magazine. Over the years, Keith has received this award several times during his career with the Stones. So in the early 70s, a significant fire broke out in his Redlands estate in West Wittering. It is the very place where he and Mick conceived Jumpin' Jack Flash. So in the early 70s, this fire swept through the property, and it left various salvaged items strewn across the lawn. To the vendor, just a young boy at the time was there to assist with the cleanup, alongside his father, the one and only Jack Dyer, the estate gardener. And as a gesture of gratitude, Keith Richards gifted this boy his first Bravo Auto Award. It not only served as a lasting reminder of its survival from the fire, but also as a token of appreciation for the inspiration that Jack Dyer provided to him and Jack in creating Jumpin' Jack Flash. For the Rolling Stones, Jumpin' Jack Flash marked the beginning of a new chapter, a time when they tapped into their raw, primal energy to craft the fierce sound that would ultimately define them as the greatest rock and roll band in the world. Not sure if Jack Dyer ever got any royalties from the song, but he should have. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Leave us a comment about Jumpin' Jack Flash. What a great song. One of the greatest riffs ever. What are your memories of this song? What do you think about Jack Dyer? Should he have gotten any royalties? Maybe a little gesture. I thought it was really cool about the Auto Award. Let's have a great discussion about the riffs. What are some other Rolling Stones songs that we should cover on here? Let us know below. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends. Talk to you soon.